This is try number 3. Let's see. I wouldn't even call myself an amateur videographer. Beginner might be a little generous, but as you guys may have heard, we've moved from Minnesota to Milwaukee, Wisconsin. At least the business has. Cody's got his own design office and he's staying up in his hometown there. But yeah, I got one of these nifty DJI microphones and stole a few lights from my brother, and here we go. Let's try this out. I'm here to talk about the C-47 today, which is coming out on this Friday, the 21st of February at 10 a.m. Central Time. And it's actually our first 1/32nd model. And I want to talk to you guys a little bit about that. And then we're going to clip into a previous video Cody and I made, just to the section that Cody's with, because I spent that night at the office, had about 3 hours of sleep, and you know, I thought, oh, maybe this is endearing, but no, it's really not endearing to make a video looking like ass. So these models are for adults. I think I'm allowed to say that word, but maybe YouTube policies are against it. We'll see if I get banned or not. Anyways, into the model. So here we have a 1/32nd C-47 representing That's All Brother, which was the lead plane, or lead C-47 at least, of the D-Day invasion, filled with 101st jumpers and some extra paratroopers and some extra crew members, probably due to extra radio equipment and whatnot they had because it was the lead plane. Brick designers did a fantastic job on the prints. These are actually prototype prints. This whole model's a prototype. We had this at Brick World Chicago last year, and one of the things we noticed, really the only thing we noticed, because this thing survived trips all over the place with Cody and I taking it just as you see it sitting in a car. The only thing we noticed is that the roof is a little bit structurally unsound, I would say. However, the Lego gods have blessed us, and the 3x2 pieces now come in a double wide version. They're not on here yet, but we are very confident that that will completely solve the issue. We did have another solution that we were going to implement, but that one was going to cut down on the headroom a little bit, which, so yeah, 3x2 double wides. Thank you, Lego gods. Let's see. I guess the big thing here to discuss is 1/32nd scale. And why did we switch to 1/32nd scale? There's a number of reasons. First off, how did we get started in 1/35th? I think we started doing 1/35th simply because Cody came from Brickmania, and that's what Brickmania is doing. When I was growing up, I did a lot of scale model stuff with my dad, and 1/32nd is more of the scale for model planes than 1/35th. In fact, I'm not sure if any company, I'm sure they do, but I'm not sure any company actually makes 1/35th scale airplanes. They usually jump from 1/32nd to 1/48th. So ground vehicles are a different animal. Those are almost always at 1/35th in that range, and we're going to stay at 1/35th, which actually looks okay because, you know, ground vehicles and planes are so much different anyways, and, you know, usually display them at a distance and whatnot. But that's not the point I'm trying to get at. But 1/32nd simply gives us 30% more volume on each model. It allowed us to make a much nicer canopy that actually slides to the rear on the P-51 model that we made, which hasn't been put out yet. It allowed us to put a glass canopy on a BF-109, which I'm not sure anybody that had done a glass canopy on a minifig scale BF-109 before. Probably somebody did. I'd have to go jump on Flickr, so sorry. But ours is going to have one, and it really looks phenomenal. We're just touching up the tail a little bit on that. Cody's going to do a little bit of redesign there, and then that one's going to be released. But ultimately, it comes down to the other part is minifig scale. Like, what is minifig scale? A lot of people will tell you a lot of different things. The width of a minifig, and I know there's at least one source that kind of breaks down the different dimensions of a minifig in relation to the average height of a human. I mean, what's the average height of a human, right? Are we talking in America, the whole world, you know, Denmark, where they're taller and Lego is from? I don't know. But in general, it seems like the width of a minifigure is around 1/26th or so scale, and the height is probably closer, 1/40th maybe, somewhere 1/42nd, I think I read. But I would argue there's a third dimension that's important with minifigs, and that's the seated height. And the seated height, I think, is important because minifigures don't have knees, and when they're sitting down, obviously, you only lose a brick in height. And so the seated height on a minifigure, scale-wise, is considerably taller than a standing minifigure. And that's why a lot of times with planes and stuff and cockpits and some of our models, if you guys have the old BF-109, the minifigure's hands are basically in his face because that's the only way to fit a 600-pound human being in scale in one of these old World War II cockpits. So the 30% extra volume approximately that we get from 1/32nd is really going to help us add more detail to the models. It's going to make the models better. And it led to this model, which in my opinion is the greatest, and I'm not joking here, I think this is the greatest minifig scale Lego plane model. I know there's a lot of disclaimers in there, but that Cody has ever done. So, and I think Cody feels the same way, and our test builders haven't really completely got to it yet, but I'll let you know what Tyler and David think on an Instagram story or something like that. But ultimately, this thing is just phenomenal. All the details are there. Cody put some new pieces from Technic or whatever that just really tied together the whole nose, and now we've got the double wide 3x2s coming out. Typically, whenever we make a model, there's some sort of sacrifice or something that had to be kind of changed in order for the model to work. And honestly, there's no sacrifices here. In my opinion, it's the perfect model. If Brick Veteran closes down 10 years from now and I'm working somewhere else and have an office or whatever, this is the plane that's going to be in my office. And simultaneously, this is our first 1/32nd model. So it's always going to be special, I think, just because of that. This video is going to be kind of long. I'm going to switch to Cody's section after this, but I really appreciate everyone who's our customer, who's supported us for the last 5 years. And shout out to my brother who owns this building and gave us a really good, opportunity to move in here and make this a space. It's already paying huge dividends with me being located closer to the office than I was previously. And like I said, Cody's got a great space at his house, so he didn't really need it anyways. I think this will hopefully improve our fulfillment times quite a bit on stuff that we have in stock. And hopefully, we get a couple people in here that are happy to be here. More people in Milwaukee than Brainerd, obviously, so we have more opportunity to find some people. And hopefully the company can continue to do as well as it has. But yeah, that's all I got to say. I'm going to cut you into Cody now.
Yeah, I'm just going to jump in kind of right where you left off about mixing and matching the scales. And that might be a reason that people are apprehensive to get a 1/32nd scale model versus 1/35th and keeping everything consistent. So what I did to sort of sidestep that is you don't actually have to have these models sitting next to each other on a table. You can display it vertically on your wall. I was able to create a stand that you can screw into a stud on the wall. I left the screws in there just to show that I have had it mounted in the wall. You can see the sheetrock that's up there. But the stand is strong enough to hang up there on the wall, then you can see all the top-down detail. And I'll cover it with my face so you don't look at my ugly face. I've had this hanging on my wall. I've had B2 bomber hanging on the wall, and it's a really fun way to display things because you can see all the details and doesn't collect as much dust either. The only dust will really collect on the nose there. So you don't have to dust all the wings off all the time. Unless, of course, you want to. That's up to you. But the stand also works on its own on the tabletop. It's up high enough where you can display your 1/35th scale ground vehicles on the ground as they ought to be. Landing gear works. It retracts. Not very far, just because that's how it does on the real one. Most of the wheel is exposed as it retracts up into the engine itself. And it was really fun to design a little bit bigger, especially cockpit-wise, because, as aforementioned, minifigures are very wide. They have a hard time fitting inside cockpits, especially on this one, having built a C-47 at 1/35 scale before. Their arms are kind of like up, it's really crammed together. Couldn't really fit much in there, and certainly had, there's no room for detail in terms of an instrument panel or any control sticks. So there's a lot more detail inside the cockpit than you can have for printed artwork. I was even able to put foot pedals up there, which, minifigures' legs are too stubborn to reach the foot pedals, but they are there. They are represented under the nose here. And Lego has been coming out with tons of new pieces, thankfully in usable colors that I love and are useful to me in terms of military building. And a couple of those pieces are these new sort of curved panels in Technic in dark bluish gray that I was able to make a majority of the nose and the top of the cockpit there as well. It's just a super clean. It's the perfect piece. I wish I could use it more, but it really fit the blueprints well on this model, so I'm not sure how much I'll be able to use that new piece, but that for sure helped achieve the look of the nose, and that's, as I've mentioned every time, that's where I start to work my way back. And the C-47, it's just got kind of an angry look to it with the way that the windscreen is, the windshield. It's a nice sharp 45-degree angle. Just looks kind of mean. But just to give you an idea of what we're able to accomplish as far as looks and as far as subtle stepping, going back to start from a skinny nose to a larger, wider fuselage. Really subtle stepping here. The wing dihedral is super strong. Traveled with this cross country sitting in the back of my car with no help, no cushioning, no aid, just letting it go on its own. Came back with no damage whatsoever. Wings maintained their dihedral. They don't really droop, and they don't really, if you hold it upside down, it doesn't really go drooping the other way either. It retains the structure really well. And continuing on with the nose, having a little bit more space and really wanting to drive the point home that 1/32 gives you more ability to incorporate cooler techniques is I tied both propellers together. And it is possible to motorize it. I left an access panel inside where the paratroopers sit. So you could pull that panel off and you could attach another gear or series of gears, that whatever you need, in order to motorize it if you want to leave it motorized. And it can probably fit an entire battery pack inside the fuselage as well. I haven't tried it, but the theory stands. So what I did do, if you don't motorize it, is I left a gear exposed underneath here and I geared it up. I forgot what the ratio was, but I'm not spinning it very far in order to get it to have the propellers spin a lot faster than how I'm spinning this gear. It's awkward to do this on camera, but you can hold it with one hand and sort of spin it with your finger underneath and really get those props cranking. So that was fun. I was able to incorporate a lot of different gears inside here that are all hidden. You can't see them in order to gear them up. So it's a fun play feature. But I built this design with D-Day in mind, so it retains all the proper antenna that you would have seen on some D-Day planes. And it does have functioning reposable ailerons and flaps all the way underneath. And I did split this one so it goes next to the stand as well. Functioning reposable rudder that I've done in the past, and elevators. And another interesting note with building the stripes on the tail is at 1/35 scale, 2 bricks wide is a little bit too big. At 1/32 scale, 2 bricks wide is perfect in terms of just where I've seen them paint them historically, where they start the paint versus where they end the paint, pretty much right on the money. And that was the most satisfying part outside of building the nose, most satisfying part was stepping this down, tapering it down nice and smooth with all the colorful stripes there. Not very colorful, black and white, but do have a jump door that you can detach. I did leave a ladder inside here that you can pull out and spin this little brick around. So as you have it sitting on its landing gear, you can attach the ladder. Yeah, it can fit a full crew. There is a lot of detail on the interior, so you can have pilot, co-pilot, radar, radio operator, crew chief, and 12 jumpers, maybe more. Depends on how well you cram them in there, but for D-Day, certainly, I think it would be 12 jumpers. And that gives you more space. I did put benches on the inside, which I haven't done on the smaller scale because of the height difference that you were mentioning about minifigures being too tall when they sit down. Now it gives you a little more height range so they can actually sit on a bench that I built on the interior. Yeah, I think that's about all I have to say, except wood screws not included.